Special Branch and MI6 officer and the author of Black Ops.
I was undercover for Special Branch in a jihadi organisation.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe for free.
My name is Carlton King, and welcome to the Black Spy podcast, the show that shines a light on the world of secret intelligence, national security, and armed governmental personal protection operations, and looks at geopolitics and where my world meets the everyday world of other people. And what I tend to do in order to get that superb blend is to bring onto the show individuals who in their world are at the top of their game often. And today is no exception. Today I've got a sportsman who I've wanted to get on the show for quite some time. Now what has happened is that he's been ducking me. Now I'm giving something away there. He's been ducking and diving me. So that should tell you the world I'm looking at. I'd like to welcome Marcello Renda. Champ, how are you doing?
Hi, Carl, mate. I'm all good, mate. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me on the show. But I'm doing really well. Thank you, pal.
Fantastic, mate. So I think everybody's got it that you were in the game of boxing, so hence the ducking and diving bit. And what I wanted to do is, first of all, to find out a little bit about yourself, Cello, where you grew up, because I know you sort of fight under the banner of UK Italy. So it'd be interesting for me to know how that came about, so what that connection is. And just how you got into the boxing game in general. Can you tell the listeners that, my friend?
Yeah, so my background, I'm from Italian background. Mum and dad were Italian, but I was born in Peterborough, England. But all my family are Italian. So a bit about myself, really. So I wasn't a very educational type of person. I didn't really enjoy school. School wasn't my thing, shall I say. I was getting myself into all sorts of trouble, mainly just through fighting, really. And I thought to myself, do you know what? I'm good at fighting, you know. And then my life changed. It really did change. Well, I had an incident on a night out where things could have got a lot worse for me. I got involved with the police. I could have gone to prison. I really could have, you know, knocking 2 rugby players out. And I thought to myself, this isn't the life for me. This isn't the life for Cello Render. I thought to myself, do you know what? I think I'm going to turn professional, be a professional boxer and get paid to fight. What better way of doing it? I love to fight. Why not do it in the right way?
Can I ask you something, Cello? Can I ask you something, mate? You said you sort of realised you liked fighting. Is that true? You actually liked it?
I did. Well, I was never a bully. I was never a bully. I never went out to look for fights. I was never the one that was able to walk away or get myself out of that sort of situation, you know, whereas now it's different though. I could sense I'll move out of the way and stuff like that. When I was younger, I was very hot-headed and didn't know to walk away. So I didn't mind fighting. I didn't mind. It didn't bother me, you know. I didn't mind getting punched in the face. I didn't mind I didn't mind weaving and getting it, and it hurt.
I was going to ask you that, Cello, because this is fantastic. So we've already started, ladies and gentlemen, we're already coming into some fantastic areas. No, the reason why I was going to ask you that, look, I was a Kung Fu man, and I did Kung Fu, relatively young. And if I say so myself, I was pretty good at it. But I never liked getting hit. I'm going to tell you that right now, mate. The worst thing that I liked was getting it, and especially not getting it in the face. So for you to turn around and tell me you liked getting it in the face, this is interesting. How does that come about?
Just, you know, I think when I get hit in the face, it warms me up. It makes me feel alive. It makes me feel like I'm somebody, I'm something, I'm someone, and it makes me feel like, I don't know, it just brings I'm a different person, like I am sat today talking to you. I'm a totally different person in my day-to-day, life, But when I'm in that ring, I'm a different person, I'm a different animal, Sounds sounds really weird, but I'm the nicest person you'll ever meet. But at the same time, when I was fighting, I was in that ring, I wanted to punch your head off because I knew you were trying to punch mine off, and it didn't bother me getting hit in the face. Honestly, it didn't. So I didn't do a lot of ducking and diving around his tab on my face. But
Well, this is what's interesting is, but you learned to like the punch in the face before you got into the boxing. It appeared to think from what you said to me. Is that true? So
yeah, very much so, yes.
Right. So what made you, or who helped you, get into that step of saying, "Listen, mate, you're doing this for nothing. You might as well do it for something." Who guided you on that route?
It was more myself, and honest, it was more the case for me because I've come from a good Italian background, a good family background. I come from a good heritage and got a good upbringing and good morals and stuff like that. It was just my way of people hanging around when I was at school. Right. I knew that wasn't the road for me, So it was me that decided, do you know what? Because when I left school, didn't know where I really wanted to go. I went in to do public service. I wanted to pick up work, wanted to join the police. That didn't quite work out. It weren't for me. Then I left that college and I went in to do bricklaying. That weren't really for me. I was so concentrated on being a pro boxer, and that's all I cared about. And then I went into pro boxing at the age of 18. I turned pro 18.
Right. I mean, well, that's a hell of a jump, though, isn't it? I mean, a lot of people will probably say, "I want to be a pro boxer," as people, I guess, say, "I want to be a pro footballer." But everybody can't be a pro, can they? It's got to be very difficult. And in boxing, there's two guys in a ring, so there can't be that many who actually get the chance to be pro. So how did that come about for you? Is it dedication? Is it that you already have the skills? What is it?
Yeah, you've touched on it. It is that dedication. Obviously you got a certain amount of skill, but you've got to have the dedication. You've got the will. You've got to have those sacrifice. You've got to be able to sacrifice. You've got to put the work in. You've got to put the effort in. Because if you don't have any of that, unfortunately, you only last 5 minutes. That's why I lasted 14 years. So, and I had 40 professional fights because I had that commitment. That discipline. And the will to succeed and the will to win. And that was the difference between myself and many other fighters out there.
Right. So did you, I'm just trying to get a picture because there's obviously going to be lads out there who, like you, think, you know what, I like this fighting game and I want to do something different. But most of them are never going to make pro. That's true, isn't it?
Very much. Yes, right. Yes, of course.
So what does the amateur game offer? And did you first do the amateur game or did you sort of go straight into proing? I'm trying to get an understanding.
Yeah, that's a very good question because there's one thing I regret. I never went amateur. Whereas for me, going back, like I said at the beginning, I wanted to fight. I wanted to earn some money, and that is all I cared about. I didn't quite understand the business side of boxing back then. But looking back now and I've retired, I definitely would recommend any fighter out there that wants to turn professional is to go down the amateur route. One, for getting experience. Secondly, you can build a fan base. And thirdly, most importantly, when you retire from boxing, you're able to have a good promoter behind you to put the right fights in the right place for you when you're ready to go pro. They put the fights in the right place, and they sort of like look after you in the right way. Whereas I never got really looked after. I got put in the lion's den from day dot.
Right. So I've got to ask you, mate, what was the lion's den? How did that come about?
Because because I never boxed amateur, which meant I didn't really have a promoter really to sort of like guide my career as such. So it meant because I wasn't in the blue corner as a home fighter, it meant I had to box on the road a fair few times throughout my whole career. So when you're boxing on the road, you're 60-40 away because when you're an opponent, the reason why they're ringing my manager up is because they think they can beat me. Right? They won't be ringing me up to think that I could beat them.
So
right. when you're in the away corner, it's because they think that they can beat you. Not think they know that they can beat you. Right? They won't put you in the corner.
Right.
You know? But the few times when I did box in the home corner, we got opponents we believed that we could beat. Yeah. Not walk over, like just to give me a good test, but not enough test to beat me. Yeah. Just enough test to get the best out of me. Not a test where I walk over and knock him out in one round. Just enough to get the rounds and get the experience in.
So who organises that? That's the promoter, yeah? Is that the manager? Which one is it? Promoter.
So what happened is my manager will speak to the promoter, and the promoter, if it's the promoter show, he'll have a matchmaker that'll matchmake his show for him. So say for example the promoter, I go to my matchmaker, I want you to matchmake these 5 fights for me, please. You know, I'm paying you, so making sure you get the right opponents for my fighters. Whereas if all my fighters lose, I'm gonna get you the job again to match my fighters again, because I'm matching you to get my fighters to win.
Right.
So very political.
So would you say it's corrupt?
Very much so. Very well.
Right.
You very much so. Very much so. From all the way up the levels. All very corrupt.
So
definitely say that.
Could I say that if you've got a fighter who you think can make it for whatever reason, you don't match that fighter with people who you know can beat him.
That's 100% right.
What you do is you match that fighter with people who maybe make it look like he could get beat, but you know in reality he can't get beat. So it looks like a good fight, but you know it really isn't. Is that what? And do you carry fighters? Do these fellas who they're promoting carry a fighter? So you know they could knock him out in round 1, but bring him through to round 5, just so it looks as though it was a match. Is that what happens?
So what happens as a fighter, you want to build your fight up, going through each fight at a time. So you don't want to. I want my fighters to have hard fights, because it'll take too much out of them. Right. But what you want to do is you want him to have fights where it's a learning fight for him. So if I was matching a fighter, I wouldn't want to put my fighter with someone who's a big puncher, because I'll put my fighter with someone who's a big puncher, it's more likely to get knocked out because he's a big puncher.
Yeah.
But what you want to do is you want to put your fighter with somebody who's experienced enough to give you the rounds and the experience at the right time in your career. And as you step up through the ladder, when you do go up the ladder, when you do fight for them big titles, then it is a 50-50 pretty much. But then as it's a 50-50, you've gained so much experience ready for that 50-50 fight.
Gotcha. So on the route up to the big fight, it's kind of set up. But in the big fight itself, it's not necessarily set up. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, right. That's right. Yeah. When it's a main event, it's not no. If you're the home fighter, as you find out this weekend just gone, you know, when Taylor fought Cattrall, because he's the home fighter, he's the champion. There's no way in a million years he won that fight. But the away fighter, he didn't get the decision because he's the away fighter, wasn't on his show, wasn't in Scotland at the home fighters crowd, you know. So that's what he's up against it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you about that. I mean, I didn't see the fight, but I know people who did see the fight, and they basically said the man was robbed. I mean, I can understand that in, I don't know, 1930s, 1940s when the mafia controlled it. I kind of can't understand it now. How can a sport get away with something that clearly is not? Well, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. Yeah, I am going to say it. That something that's corrupt, because that's only what it can be said. I mean, how can you get away with that today? Surely that's not possible. Obviously, it was.
Yeah, can't you don't want to say that, mate. Everyone has said that how corrupt it is, and it goes down. It goes down for it's been going on for years. We even when I turned pro 18 was it 20 odd years ago. Even back then in the early days, I got decisions gone against me because I'm the away fighter. This is something that I believe will never change. Will never change. This will keep going on. I've known this to go on for years and years and years and years and years. This will never change.
But does that not undermine boxing? Does that not make boxing less palatable for people?
100%. That's why you hear a lot of people. If you're in a fighting game like myself, you see and hear a lot of people that walk away from the game because they're just fed up with how political it is. Pretty similar to myself, I retired 3 years ago. I believe I retired a bit too young, even though I had a hard career. I believe it wasn't so political and so corrupt in that way. I'll still be boxing today because it's just so political. And so if you're not, if you ain't got the people, if you ain't got the right backing, you ain't got people around you, you're up against it. And I was very up against it from day dot.
Were there fights that you thought that you should have won?
Many fights. Right. Many fights. I even got to the stage, Carl, where one of my fights, I was in the away corner. Referee had to hold my hand. He was about to lift my hand up. It wasn't no word of a lie. No word. He had my hand to lift my hand up. I swear on my life. I even got a cutting scrap ball. He dropped my hand down and lifted the opponent's hand up because he was the home fighter and he was a trialist referee. So he's a trial. So which meant he couldn't give the decision, but he thought I'd won. Right. There was referees on ringside who were judging it. And they said, no, give it to, his name was at the time, Ricardo Sams. Right. Dropped my hand down, went over to the other corner and lifted his hand up. That's just one occasion. So many fights.
So what, right, in football, I speak what I know about. In football, the referee is reffing the match. Now, we know we got VAR and all that sort of stuff that he goes to look at and the decisions that badly made. But the referee is refereeing the match. In rugby, the referee is refereeing the match. In cricket, the umpire's doing the match. In tennis, they're doing it. What is a referee doing in boxing? That a referee holds your hand to lift it and then puts it down. Who's reffing the fight then?
It depends, really. So you have judges. So like in world title fights, British title fights, you have 3 judges.
Right.
So they judge the fight.
So the referee judges no part of it at all?
No part of it at all, no. So I'm talking at like world level, Commonwealth level, British level. Yeah. If it's like a normal fight, box standard fight, the referee would judge it. Right. But you're talking at big level fights, British, Commonwealth, European, world title fights. You got three judges that judge the fight. The referee's there just to manage the fight, make sure the fight's going the way it should be going. Make sure fighters are obeying by the rules.
Now, can I ask you another question, Cello?
Yes.
Because we've got a level with actually judging a fight. Is there sort of dodgy stuff going on in terms of how fighters, like there was always a story about Muhammad Ali had something on his gloves and that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Does that stuff go on?
I don't know, because it's when you got 3 judges this weekend, you got to think of this. You've got 3 judges, okay, who are employed to do a job, okay. For me, it's like, are they proper boxing type people? What's the, I always believe you got proper, you can be when you're judging, are you a boxing man, proper boxing man, or are you just somebody that's passed the qualification, passed the exams to do the judging? For me, it's got to be. I think judging's got to be sort of like, if you're making a wrong decision, and it's so blatant, you've got to go to the board of control to explain your reasons why you've given that decision and why you scored it that way.
Yes.
I think that what's happened at the weekend is that as a prime example. I think all 3 of them, common name, 3 of them, all 3 of them should go in front of the board of control and explain why you've judged a fight that way.
Yeah.
I really do. Because it's not on. Because you mentioned about people's careers,
Absolutely.
With capture on the weekend. He's waited his whole life. He's dedicated his whole life to get taken away from it, and it's not on. It's not on at all.
Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, it can happen in other sports.
Yes.
And the reason why I'm saying that, because it just came to my mind when you said that, watching the Formula One and the way that race was restarted. And instead of going to the rules where every car had to go past them, which would have meant that they'd have ended it before your man could take Hamilton over, they didn't. They allowed the people who were in front of him to go, so the race would restart. So clearly, this sort of gerrymandering, this sort of dodgy practice can happen in other sports. But I think that if you've got, well, this is what I was going to ask you when I was just thinking about that. The three judges, not referees, they call them judges, don't they? The three judges, who hires them?
It's got to be. I think I was going to touch on though. Obviously the promoter is putting the show on, so no doubt he'll be getting the promoters the judges that he wants.
No, come on. There's not. Surely not.
He'll get the promoters that he'd want, which meant he can put on these shows the three judges, judges that he wants on this show. You know, he imagine if I've got a show and I've got to give this promoter here, but no, I don't want that promoter on my show, because the last 4 or 5 shows that he's judged is given bad decisions. I don't want him on my show. Can you get me another one? Of course, get all down on, because imagine if it wasn't for that promoter, that show would never be that show won't be put on, and nobody will be getting paid. So he's a man. He can dictate who he can have and can't have all day long.
So do you think then that this same thing, because I was just going to ask you this question, do you think this same thing goes on in MMA?
Do you know what? With MMA, there's another fighting game. More probably, I don't know. I don't really follow MMA as much. I know, so I can't really comment and be honest with that. But do you know what? Probably I know people that are in the game, and all fighting games all probably work the same.
Right. Because the reason why I'm asking you that, because I know boxing's lost a lot of people to MMA.
Yes, very much so.
And because of that, I wonder if it's because of judgments like what happened the other week.
Yeah.
So, but if MMA is doing the same, then there's nowhere to go to, because that's exactly the same. But if it isn't doing the same, then maybe it looks cleaner. Did you see what I mean? Maybe it just looks cleaner. You know?
Yeah, you're more likely to get your people transfer and move over to the MMA.
Yeah.
I've had fighters who I've trained who do bare knuckle, and it's like, and that's BKB bare knuckle, and it's absolutely set off like nobody's business. And people love all that. People love the fights that are involved in the BKB stuff. You know,
well, that's brutal, though, isn't it? That's brutal.
No, it's too brutal for my liking. My hands, for starters, won't be able to cope with it, because I've broken my hands numerous times with boxing gloves and wraps on. Never mind bare knuckle. Oh,
yeah. So this is my point. So you've gone into the boxing. You felt you had the opportunity to make it to the top. I mean, first and foremost, can you tell the public how far you got in the sort of game of boxing, so they can understand?
For me, I didn't want. It's not for me. I wanted to get to the top. For me, it was about just changing my life. You know, sounds corny and saying that. You know, for me, it would have been better. Doing boxing would have been better where I would have been in my life. And probably doing something I would have hated. I'm in the position I am today because of boxing. Yes. So boxing for me was brilliant. I got ranked in the top 10 in Great Britain.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I know you won. You nearly won the sort of all comers. What was it called? That program that was very
Prize Fighter.
You nearly won the prize fighter.
But again, that's another fight that you can debate about. You know, I fought like Martin Murray. Many people thought I'd won. Right. People thought he won.
So you're in the final. You're in the final, weren't you?
I was in the final. Yes, that could have gone either way. Me and Martin Murray, he went on to go and fight for world titles. I got in the prize fight again, fought in the prize fight again. And got to the final again, but this time I had a broken hand, which didn't go quite well for me. I broke my hand in the quarterfinals. And got to the final with a broken hand. I had a hand in plaster for the next 2 months after that.
Yeah.
I won a 7-era title, first person to win that title in Peterborough for over 20 years. I won a couple of other small little titles as well. I've been a fighter of the year, bit lad called Leon McKenzie, who was a former Peterborough professional footballer and turned out into a professional boxer. Beat him for the 7-era title, which got voted fighter of the year. Obviously the famous double knockdown. Me and
I was going to come on to that. That is the most famous thing, because for a while it was on Sky TV. Now, surely you must have made out of that, my friend. Yeah, the fact they got the double knockdown.
The double knockdown has got viewed by so many people.
Millions.
So many. Yeah, so many people have seen it. So when I look back and when I started to what I've gone through and where I am today, I'm happy what I've done. But I always have a bit of taste in my mouth, because I always know I could have done more. That's the thing. Probably if I wasn't living in Peterborough, I was living in, say, like London, Manchester, Birmingham.
Right. So your region where you live makes a difference then.
Massive difference.
Right.
Massive difference.
What? Explain to me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because got to think yourself. When you're in places like Manchester, London, Birmingham, your bigger cities, you've got fighters in the same city. Whereas for me, when I was boxing, it was only just me. So you can't sort of bounce off each other. You're just me. Secondly, I trained myself. Nobody trained me. Nobody who was telling me what to do, how to go about it. I did link up with John Pegg in Birmingham. He lived in Birmingham.
Yeah.
So I couldn't go there every week. It cost me too much money, or every day, shall I say. I used to go there when I had say I had a fight come up in, say, 6-7 weeks. I'd go there once or twice a week. It's not enough. And he wasn't there to sort of ring him up, tell me, are you running today? Or what's your weight like? I was getting on hold me pads just so I could hit some pads. Also, you haven't got the people that are going to support you, so no one really could sell tickets to, because obviously selling tickets is a massive thing in boxing.
Right.
I didn't have no promoters like that, not promoters around the area. I didn't have no sponsors. So it was an uphill struggle for me. It really was. When I was a pro boxer, training myself, with nobody. I couldn't spar nobody. I had to travel to spar. I didn't have no sponsors that could help fund my boxing. It was a hard.
So would you have got that if you'd have gone amateur, as you said earlier on? Would you have built that sort of following up in the amateur?
I would have, 100%.
And is that's what it used for?
Yeah, the following 100%. You would have built a nice, good fan base, because they would have followed you throughout your whole amateur career. Because when you box an amateur before you turn pro, you have over 50 professional fights, 50 amateur fights. Sorry.
Yeah.
Which meant you would have picked up a sponsor. You would have picked up a promoter who probably would have wanted you under his books. You would have picked up a sponsor as well, because they would want you to promote their business. Then probably would have. Probably would have moved away from Peterborough. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. Possibly. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe.
But what made you not do that route? Because that would be the route of the Olympics and everything like that.
Yeah.
Did you never think about Olympic Games, or do you never?
Yeah, for me it was if I went amateur, maybe I would have gone down that road. Because I didn't. For me, I was a homeboy. For me, I was like, a good fight is a happy fight. So if I'm living away, I wouldn't have been as happy.
Gotcha.
It meant I wouldn't have been as a good fighter, because I wouldn't have been happy living away from home.
Yeah.
And for me, there was no reason for me to do that.
Yeah.
As such, I thought living in Peterborough, doing what I was doing was the right thing to go about it. Maybe, I don't know.
Are you saying that you weren't hungry enough? Is that what you're saying?
Never not hungry. No, definitely not hungry. I just think maybe the opportunity wasn't there for me to do that.
Right.
I was probably a bit too hungry for it.
Gotcha.
Because I wanted it too much in my life, in my career, too much. I trained too hard. I've had over 44 professional fights. There's not one fight I can say to you now, sitting here today now, saying to you, I wish I did this, I wish I did that. Not one. Not one. I'll give it absolutely everything I could have ever done.
So I actually want to touch on that as well, Cello. What about the health aspect? Did you ever think about the health aspect of boxing?
When you're involved in it at the time, you don't think about it. You just think about winning. You think about fighting. You think about your next fight. You think about, what if I win this fight? What could be next? Maybe now retired, you maybe do think about it a little bit, and what's that going to have in my life going forward? Is it going to have any sort of detrimental effect on me? I don't know, maybe, but the thing is, I'm sat again today, I probably would do it all over again.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
I'm just thinking about basic things like the cuts you get and the potential for eye problems or stuff like that. That sort of potential. Did that never sort of came into your mind?
No, not at all. One of my fights, I had 25 stitches across one of my eyes.
Oof.
And I got stitched up. Obviously, went to the hospital that night. And they couldn't do nothing for me because it was too bad. So they brought in someone from Cambridge, a specialist surgeon, to do my eye, sew my eye up. Within 4 or 5 months later, I was back in the ring again.
So who pays for that? Who pays for that sort of damage? Is that part of the promotion or?
No, nothing whatsoever.
No, it's down to you. Right?
Down to me, yeah. If it meant I couldn't box for a year, that means I couldn't box for a year. That's it. But whereas, going back to the amateur, if I had a sponsor who was looking after me, he probably would end up paying for me still each month. Because he want, because that's what sponsors are there for, because to help cover costs and help cover things like that were to happen.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have any of that, I didn't box. I think it worked out about 4 months in box. I had a little part-time job anyway. I didn't really have much outgoings. They weren't living away from home, which meant I didn't have much to pay out. So it was okay to have them 4 months off. But in the end, I was back in the ring again within 4 months.
So do you think that the amateur is also a better boxer because he's learned so many different things?
A boxer will always beat a brawler. So definitely.
Right.
If you can box, you'll be a brawler only gets so far. Believe that, but a technically good boxer, mate. I've been in the ring. I've spied people who are technically good. Yeah, I'm a come forward fighter. I've got a heart of a lion.
Yeah.
I'm on you all day long, every day. But a good boxer will pin me off all day long. I've been in spars many a times where I'll get my head pinned off left, right, and centre because they're technically a good fighter.
Yeah.
And they learn it through the amateur route, gone down the right way. Whereas I learned it on the job. It's the wrong way of going about it.
So tell me what techniques, if you can speak them, make a good amateur and then a good boxer? What are the, like your Muhammad Ali say, what is his technique that makes him a good boxer? What is it?
Just with the feet, the fast, sharp feet, the timing, your hand speed, your eye-hand coordination, all that you pick up in the amateurs. You have a lot of these amateur fights before they turn pro. They've had over 50 amateur fights.
Yeah.
And once they've implemented that over time, come pro, you're ready to rock and roll because you've done all your learning, in the amateur. And then when you go pro, you picked up your style, your style, you know what you're good, you know what you're not good at, and you implement it in the pro game. Whereas I didn't know what I was good at, I didn't know what I weren't good at. I know I could punch. Other than that's all I know I could do. So all I resorted to was brawling because that's all I know.
Right.
But towards the end of my career, I could actually box. but you learn all that. You learn all that in the amateurs. But I learned that in the pro game. I learned I could box. I learned I could box 20, 25 fighters down the line with 15 stitches across my face. And 2 broken hands.
So what you tell me is a lot of it's muscle memory.
All day long.
Yeah, see, I can put that to shooting. When you draw your weapon, you're shooting. It's muscle memory. It just stays with you. Come up, you're drawing it quickly. It's just muscle memory. You know where it's going. You don't even need to think about it. So you're saying that's being learned in the boxing game as you're going through in your amateur, and then you see what works, what doesn't work. And if a guy boxes in a certain way, how to maybe counter that boxing. Yeah, that's the question. Did you counter your boxers, or did you just go at them? Did you learn to counter them?
Not really, mate. I have one style, mate. Not really. My countering my counter would take one to give you two.
Brilliant.
That was my counter remote. Not so much really, you know. I had game plans to a certain extent, but for me, I had one style. One style for me was, mate, you hit me once, I hit you 3 or 4 times. Maybe you hit me twice, but I hit you 4 times.
Yeah.
That's why. Anyone speak to any fighter, the term Cello Render, I'd always say Cello Render. It was so exciting, but you know what, mate? I was too excited for me. Good, too excited because I believe that's why I retired at the age I did, because my body couldn't take no more. I broke my hands towards the end of my career for too much. You know, broke my hand every other fight, and my wear and tear on my body, the longevity of me has gone. You really had gone mentally, physically, my body, and I just couldn't do no more. You know, because I was in too many hard fights too soon.
Yeah. So what had gone though? What I mean, when I was doing kung fu, I was doing kung fu kudo. My main thing was blocking. You know, at one stage when I was a youth, I could block you all day long, and I don't care whether you're a boxer or whether you're a kung fu artist or whether you're I don't know, a savate, French foot fighting, which is with fencing. I learned techniques which would basically be allow me in that time to block you no matter what you did. So I used to practice a lot with guys just coming at me, maybe 1 or 2 guys, sometimes 3, coming at me, and I'd just be blocking them. You know, that was my thing, to just block. I wasn't even striking them back. Indeed, I would argue that my big problem would be that I wasn't really capable of attacking. You see what I mean? I needed somebody to come to me that I block them, and then after blocking them several times, depending on what it was, maybe on some occasions it might be once and I'm in, but generally a lot of times I blocked them, because every time I'm blocking them, I'm hurting them, of course, because the way you do it in Kung Fu, you're hurting their arms.
Yes, of course.
So I'm blocking them, and then I see the opening. So that's how I functioned.
Yes.
But I realized that, you know, a lot of, and you've said it, so I just want to come through and tell me what you think. I remember once I was teaching some guys. They were American Army Rangers. This is when I was in Germany. And Rangers are like maybe a mixture between paratrooper and SCS, SPS. That a mixture between them. So maybe not at Delta Force, a top like SAS, but above paratrooper maybe. That sort of middle range. They won't like that. They'll think they're as good as the others. But I'd say a middle range type guy. And there was one guy. I was training these guys, a unit of them, with a mate of mine who did Shotokan karate, I did kung fu. And we had our own sort of little school. We'd teach these guys. And one guy, he'd been an ex-Vietnam fella. And basically, cut long story short, he'd killed some guy when he was like 14, 15 or whatever it was, in the streets. I can see him now, the fella. Hard-looking fella, black guy, hair cut to the bottom, teeth missing. He looked the part, you know what I mean? Looked the part. And but then a lot of them did, because they're in the Rangers, so they look the part. So, but this fella had been in Vietnam, and basically he was used on there was a special project which was set up by the CIA, which was a project where they'd basically send guys out to get rid of the Viet Cong, so the enemy of the South Vietnamese. Especially the villages outside the cities. They drop this guy down somewhere in the jungle, and he'd choose whatever weapons he want, and then he'd basically go out. And this is true, Charlie. He'd go out, and he'd basically kill some fella, top man in the field, or several others, and then he'd bring back their ears. And he brought well, it's true. They bring back their ears because Americans used to count the ears of people that they'd killed, so they know what the death rate was. Because that was the only way they were counting whether they were killing folk or not. So this guy would do this, and that's what he was doing for. Because what had happened is, I say, he killed somebody when he was like 15, whatever. He gets a juvenile thing where they put him in prison for X amount of time, and then he's offered the choice: do you want to stay in prison, senior prison, or do you want to go into the army? This is like 60s, 70s. Vietnam zone, mid, it was late 60s to 70s. And he says, I'll have the army, of course. So we put him in the army, and obviously he's got a propensity for killing folk. And he said, right, lovely. And he gets his way into Rangers, and they put him in the Rangers. And then when I knew him, he's like 78, something like that. He'd come back from Vietnam in 75, one of the later people to come out, last folk to come out. And that was what he was doing. And cut a long story short, he had mental problems. Insofar as I can remember once he was in a disco and some fella stood on his shoes. Unless so, he shouldn't have done that. That's all I can say. Because he just lost it. The fella had just gone.
Wow.
Anyway, I was training this fella. Now, what had happened is I had my foot up on a door because I used to have my feet very, very high, and as I was training, I had my foot up on the door, and my missus came in and pushed the door, and so you can imagine that that's black out. Yeah, my thing. I'm done. So I was done, and I went to the sports doctors, great doctors in Germany, so it was all great. So they sorted me out.
Yeah.
But I never felt right again. And this is what I'm saying to you. You tell me if it's the same for you.
Yeah.
So I had this fella in the ring, basically we're sparring, and the US Army had some techniques that it used to use, a certain technique that they do for the special forces of fighting. So we were fighting, and I was adding techniques onto that, and it was semi-contact, and it was the first time I realised this bloke could beat me. I always felt I could never be beaten. I felt unbeatable. I'll be truthful to you. I literally felt unbeatable. I thought that you could punch with your hand and I could kick you with my leg and kick your arm away from before your punch came to my face. So I could just boom like that with my foot. I just felt I was unbeatable, mate. Really, literally. And I thought this fella would have beaten me.
Yeah.
And it changed my whole mindset. I was never the same, you could use the word cocky maybe, fighter in terms of, I wasn't going fighting people, anything like that. That's not what I did. But the point I'm making is, I didn't have the same. So I'm going to ask you the question. When you damaged your hands and you did your fight, did you then think to yourself, you know what? I can get beat here all the time. Did that come to your mind?
Never came to my mind. Never.
You never thought you could get beat?
No,
that's interesting.
I always go into my last fight, for instance, before I retired, I broke my hand again in the fight. It was the first round again. It's absolutely crazy. I broke my hand in the first round.
Were you punching wrong or something?
No, I don't know what it was. No, I think because I've had over 40 professional fights. But I've always had hand injuries throughout my whole career.
Right.
I couldn't be punching that wrong because I was knocking guys out left, right, and
centre. Sure.
You know what I mean? So it's like, you know what I mean? I was knocking big men up from the age of 18 up into my 30s. I was knocking men out when I was in my 19. You know what I mean? I was a teenager. You know what I mean? It's crazy to think that. I'm saying grown-ass men as well. I think it's just you got to imagine, in the camps, I've had 40-odd professional fights, but you can say I've had over 50 camps with the fights that didn't actually happen because the opponents pulled out. And the camps take so much out of it. It's just real making the weight, training or sacrifice that goes into it, or the wear and tear of your body, the sparring that you have, the conditioning that they go through, the sore ribs you have, the hand injuries in camp, and you're fighting. Your body goes through so much.
Can I ask you, who was paying for this when you're in camps? Who's paying for the camp?
Myself. Because so
that's coming out of your purse, right?
I mean, purse. Because when you get paid, you could get paid so much amount of money, but really you're not really, because you've got to take that off. Pay him, pay that, and then you're left with hardly anything really. So when you're in camp, you pay it for yourself, and then obviously. When I never go into a fight thinking I could lose. Never. So I wouldn't go into a fight. And as a fighter, you can't say that to yourself. I think
absolutely you can't. But does it not? But does it not sit in the back of your mind? This is the point I'm saying. It never sat in the back of your mind ever.
No,
that's very interesting to me. That's very interesting.
Never.
To me. No,
even
true warrior.
Yeah, even when I was fighting men who were undefeated, who were given away massive amateur experience, I knew I had to think about what I had, what I could do, and my strengths, never mind my weaknesses. Think about my strengths. I was fit. I trained hard. I could punch really, really hard. I I don't give up. I don't stop. If I think about what I can do, forget about them. Forget about it. I always beat this. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. You could be
Yeah.
You can be the most talented fighter in the world, but if you're not trained hard, if you can give up easy, if you can find a way out, whereas I ain't none of that. Whereas if you're that, I'm beating all day long. I might not be technically better than you, but I've got so much more strength over what I've got to maybe overdo what you've got. That's what I always think. Train so hard. I always said to myself, no one will train as hard as me. And I believe that. No one can train as hard as me. And it wasn't obviously, my punch resistance after a while. And I got my last fight, I got hit with a shot. Whereas, no disrespect to the other four, he won't last 2 minutes with me 5 years ago. Right. Whereas he hit me with a shot, and it just took the wind out of me. I think, hold on a minute, what? And do you know what? Even to this day now, I can't even remember anything in the fight. Cannot remember the fight. Can't remember being in the ring. Can't remember referee joint tennis to come together, look at each other in the face. I can't remember absolutely nothing about that fight. Can't even remember leaving the ring. Can't remember nothing of the fight. How crazy is that? Out of all the fights I've had, but I can't even remember the fight. I can't remember it at all whatsoever.
But that's the fight that said to you that you weren't invincible.
That's right.
You see, this is the point I'm making. I'd never been beaten, mate. That's the point I'm making to you. And to be fair, you could argue I wasn't beaten then. But to myself, I knew he probably could have beaten me. And that's the thing. Whereas before, I never felt that. Before I know, no, it might have been that I put it together with the injury, and maybe I shouldn't have done. But the point is, to me at that time, so this is why I was asking you that, because you made a decision to leave, to not fight anymore. Something must have said to you, I can't do this because I might not win, I might not come through it.
Yes, after that fight, I said to myself, do you know what, mate? I think the career that I've had, the fights that I've had, and all the injuries and all the politics, and I think it's now time to move on from the next chapter, because I was having fights, winning titles, and having like a year out of the ring. Inactivity before that fight, I had a year out of the ring because I couldn't get a fight.
Gotcha.
So inactivity didn't play a good part for me, because you need to be active as a fighter. You need to be active. You need to be fighting every so often. I had a year out of the ring, and it didn't do me any good whatsoever. So you have a bit of ring rust,
Now, can I ask you, could you not get a fight because they felt you would beat their man, or could you not get... Right, that was the reason. Right, okay.
Yeah, because, sorry.
Everybody knew you weren't an easy fight then. That's basically what it came down to. Yeah.
Everyone knew I wasn't an easy fight. I could punch with both hands. So even though, you got a fighter that might be skillful, but it just takes one opportunity. Yeah. I was in 10-round fights back then, so... I've got one. All I need is one punch. You've got 10 rounds to do so. 30 minutes.
You're going to get hit. Wouldn't want to take the risk on you. That's basically in a nutshell.
That's right. So, even though I was 7-0 champion, even though I've won British title eliminators and boxed 2 prize fight finals, and I've boxed and ranked top 10 Great Britain, I couldn't even get a fight. How crazy is that? It tells you, but if I had a promoter behind me, like Eddie Hearn, for instance, I'll be boxing regularly.
No, this is what I wanted to ask you. How do you get to Eddie Hearn? How would you, Marcello Renda, have got onto Eddie Hearn's ticket or stable or whatever they call it? Is it stable?
Yeah, so he's stable, that's right.
Yeah.
Stable,
how would you have got into his stable?
So you've got to sell a load of tickets for starters. You've got to be a ticket seller, and also
you would have been a ticket seller because you'd have been excited. So why did you not see that?
Yeah, that's right. It's true. Well, why would you see it? But for me, he wants to know how many tickets I can do personally, not as in like people see my fight on the show. He might have bought a ticket because I'm on the show, but Eddie Hearn's not going to know that. Eddie Hearn, all he wants to know is how many tickets have I sold personally. Right. That's why each of these fighters they get so many tickets per fighter, and they've got to sell their tickets because. When I'm selling over 1,000 tickets, you think how much money I'm making. Yeah. In actual fact, I pay for my own person. Eddie Hearn's not paid for me. I pay for myself. All I'm doing is boxing a show. Yeah. Eddie Hearn doesn't be paying me out of his own back pocket if I can't sell a ticket.
Got you. Got you. So you agree a purse with him, but he's thinking that purse you are actually creating yourself because you're selling your tickets.
I'm selling God knows how many tickets.
Gotcha.
Selling thousands worth of tickets. You're getting paid, Mr. Marcello, so many thousands, but in actual fact, you're sending me over God knows how many thousands worth of tickets. Really, you paid for yourself. But I've got you on my show. The viewers, paying public, are paying to watch these fights. I'm going to love that you're on my show. I'm winning, you're winning. Happy days. And obviously, most importantly, you've got to fight as well. Obviously, you've got to fight. So you got to look at people. No disrespect, like Campbell Hatton, for instance. The reason why he's not he's getting better. He had a fought last night. He's getting better. There's a couple of fights during his career that I don't believe he should have won because who he is and the amount of tickets he sells is more damaging to him to lose than to him than not to give him the win because obviously you think of the tickets he could sell. It's good for British boxing because he's Hatton's son in that. It does public is all very he's all very political again. You go again.
So Hatton example, when he was fighting,
yes,
he's around the same era as you, isn't he?
Yeah, pretty much so. Yeah, he's a little bit older, but yeah,
a bit older. Was he kind of your weight, or was he?
No, he's a lot lighter. Yeah, he was only
a lot lighter.
Yeah, 10 stone, 10.5 stone.
Right. And what were you fighting out of?
I boxed that middle, super, light, heavy, 3 weights.
Right.
So I've been 11.5 stone, 12 stone, and 12.5.
Right, and you've got to make each one of those weights depending on what it is. Yeah. So Hatton. So we got him. We've got Hatton here. He's got this crowd. He's got Manchester behind him because he managed to connect to Manchester. So he's got Manchester with him. What would it have taken for you to get, if you will, the Hatton magic? Because was he that good a fighter? This is the question I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, he was a good fighter. I definitely say he was a good fighter. Just when he reached people like your Mayweathers and your Pacquiao's, the levels a different level. But he was a good world class fighter. He really was. Living in Manchester helped. People looked up to him because he was like one of them. Goes down the pub. He has a beer with his fans and that. After his fights, he used to blow up and wait because he used to be having a beer with all his friends and that. And people could relate to him. People could think, you know what? He's just so relatable. He's like one of us. And people that see that want to support him because he's like one of us. He doesn't think he's better than anybody. He doesn't think he's up his own arse, shall I say. So he could relate to people. People could relate to him. That's why he sold so many tickets.
Yeah. So you would rate him as a good fighter. Who wouldn't you? Yeah. Who wouldn't you rate? Who's made it to that $1 million sort of level? Or would you say they all have made it?
Well, yeah, because you've got to rate them to a certain extent because you've only got so much the promoter can do. Build up your career. But you have still got to fight to a certain extent. You've still got to fight. Maybe they might have had an easy way to get there. Yeah. Which a lot of these fighters have got promoters behind them do have it easier getting to get that place. But it's just to fight. Whereas me, it'll take me. For instance, in my career, it took me over 30 odd fights to fight and win a 7-round title. But whereas if someone had a promoter behind them, might have taken 5-6 fights. Yeah. Because they got a promoter behind them. Yeah. Whereas for me, it takes a lot longer.
I was thinking of Harrison. And look, I'm not disrespecting anybody because he's a big fan.
No, of course.
He'll sort me out. But I think you hear a lot of people say he never really had it. Is that kind of true? Is it not true? Are there people who never really had it who do the $1 million fights? Because he's done $1 million fights, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's definitely. I would say he's underachieved because winning the gold medal.
So he did have it then. He did have it.
Yeah, he did. He won a gold medal in the Olympics. Audie Harrison now.
Yeah. Some talk about
Yeah. So he won the Olympic gold medal. All he did turn pro. He won the European title. That's not bad. Because he was the people talked about him. He won a gold medal. He's expected to win a world title, which you pretty much are really. And he didn't go and achieve that. And he was raving about himself. He put big pressure on himself. he was a multi-millionaire before he had his first fight. So so he has underachieved to a certain extent, even though he won prize.
So he was a good fighter then. He was a good fighter.
He was a good fighter, but he underachieved. Though definitely underachieved.
Right,
He's still a good fighter, but he underachieved for my life. And so many people would say the same. He underachieved, and 100% he did.
Yeah. And I guess because I want to soon ask you about what you've done since fighting, because that's interesting. How you move on from fighting when you've made your decision. So I do want to ask about that, but I just want to ask on a few more bits on the fighting, because it's very interesting. So we've established really that the system goes to the people who get the right promoters behind them, the right stables, and I guess these top fighters get. Well, do the top fighters get their own stables? Let me just ask that. Do they actually, or is it the promoters?
So for instance, you promoters, okay, if you've got a load of fighters, okay, under your banner, anyone's got a banner, he likes to use certain trainers in certain gyms in certain areas. So say, for instance, if I'm from London, and I've got a lot of fighters from Tony Sims, for instance, he's a trainer from London.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in London, and I've signed with Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn would go say to me, I'd like you to train with Tony Sims, because obviously all majority of Tony Sims fighters box under the Eddie Hearn banner.
Right.
So he would advise you to try and maybe go and box with Tony Sims, or other trainers who are under the Matchroom Eddie Hearn banner. That's sort of like you to do. Whereas if you are boxing with Eddie Hearn, more 9 times out of 10 you are probably with a stable of good fighters anyway, because you can't be signed with Eddie Hearn training like yourself, like what I did.
You need to be under somebody.
Even though I signed with Ricky Hatton when I was 23. Which was massive for me, big old deal for me to sign with Ricky Hatton. But he didn't go. But I could use his facilities because he's got his own gym. I could train in his stable. I could train alongside all his fights. But at the time,
but that's in Manchester, though, isn't it? That's in Manchester.
That's right.
So you have to go to Manchester to do it.
That's right. Which means I had to move away. But at the time, I thought it was right for me to stay in Peterborough. But looking back now, maybe it was an opportunity for me to go to Manchester.
So had you gone to Hatton, would he have been training you, or would somebody else have been training you?
He could be training me, or somebody else with his stable that he's got around him. Or he definitely would have got involved somehow.
Right.
Lovely,
So he signed you because he saw you and thought you were a warrior. I'll have this guy.
Of course. I'm exciting. It was just after the prize fight.
Okay.
Just after the prize fight, and I fought Martin Murray, and he signed with Hatton. I signed with Hatton. I think a couple of others signed with Hatton as well, which was fantastic, because my very first fight under Ricky Hatton, I boxed for a British title eliminator.
Brilliant.
And I beat an undefeated fighter in Sam Morton, knocked him out in 2 rounds.
Right.
And that got voted second best knockout of that year. So it was fantastic.
So did that mean you would automatically then get a hit at the title?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I had my career planned out for me. I had a contract. After this fight, I was going to fight for that. That fight, I was going to fight for the era, British title eliminator. After that title, I was going to fight for the British title. So I had all fights planned out for me. But then my manager at the time, trainer, shall I say, well, not trainer, I trained myself. He got greedy, and then before you know it, things went downhill when it should have gone uphill, unfortunately. And that's just, still to this day now, I still have nightmares from it already.
Right. So somebody else who was managing you mismanaged you, effectively.
Not so much mismanaged me. Financially, he basically, I had the best way to put it, he robbed money out of me.
Oh,
I found it. When I found out what he'd done, he denied it when I knew it was true. Which meant I couldn't work with him no more. I couldn't be along with him anymore, which meant I had a bit of time out of the ring because he's my manager. When you sign with a manager, you've got a 3-year fix with him. 3 years. You can't box nobody else for 3 years. You've got to be with that manager, which I just signed with him not long ago, a year and a half ago, which meant I had like another year or so with him. But he let me go after 8 months. When things went downhill, and then before you know it, I lost everything. And I had to sort of like start again. But that's another story.
So that's the fight game, isn't it? In a nutshell,
That's
from what
the
you've been
fight game
saying,
in a
that's the
nutshell.
fight game in a nutshell. So
Because you can imagine a manager gets 25% of your purse.
yeah.
And then a trainer gets you 10%.
Yeah.
So
starts dropping away quick, doesn't it? Yeah. Starts dropping away quick. But they obviously thought you had it then. So you were somebody who they thought could make it. Seriously,
100%,
obviously.
100%. Yeah, for sure.
So we've seen your boxing career. We've seen the ups and the downs. We've seen that, what I think is quite a sad story, actually, when you had the talent to actually go a little bit further. We've seen how it fell away. You had your defeat, your last defeat. You realised it was something that maybe was a warning sign to you. You know, your body was.
I'll say, of course,
Your body wasn't doing what you wanted it to do anymore.
Yeah.
You thought it was dangerous. So what do you do now? You were what, 30 odd?
Oh, well, that time I was 33, turning 34. So yeah,
34.
33.
So it's early, isn't it? It's early in
It was
life.
early, yeah.
But proper for boxing, I think, if you had hard fights. So the question then is, what do you do with the rest of your life? I mean, number one, can you tell me how it felt to have been in a game that you were doing and that was your life, to then all of a sudden think, that's me finished, and I'm 34 years of age? What did that feel like?
Bit of relief, actual fact, because you know, your heartache and headache that I've gone through, you know, throughout my whole career, you know, fights pulling through. When on my honeymoon, you know, I was training through my honeymoon because I thought I had a fight, which meant when I got back into England, I found out the opponent pulled out because he had another fight. Things like that. I thought, you know what, at least I haven't got to worry about that no more. You know, you got to imagine I didn't celebrate a birthday. You know, couldn't go to any family functions because I was always in camp, always training. You know, I didn't have to make weight no more. I could eat what I want to eat. You know, so when I retired, I was like, oh yeah. But don't get me wrong. I still think about it every day.
Every day.
Every day.
So it's like smoking a cigarette. I mean, I'd never smoked in my life, but I spoke to somebody who smoked a cigarette. I used to smoke all the time. And the person said to me, I've stopped 10 years ago. I still think about a cigarette every day. So that's how powerful it is. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Every day, mate.
Every day.
Every day.
Incredible.
But obviously...
So what did you do to fill the gap?
Yes.
What did you do to fill that thinking, that movement, that bodily movement you needed? What did you then do?
So... First and foremost, I still train to this day today. You know, I've been retired 3 years, and I will still train every week. That's always helped me out no end. I always believe that physical activity is so important for people like myself and just general people, for mental health, for starters. That is so fantastic. So I've kept that going. Not only that, most importantly, the transition from being a full-time boxer 24/7, I'm now coaching. I'm a head coach for a charity called Boxing Futures, and we work with young people who aren't in educational employment, and those that suffer from any mental health, who are isolated, who have no social connections, who keep themselves to themselves. Now, so I'm in a fantastic position to be able to get paid to do a job that I absolutely love doing. So I'm in a great position. So not giving me much time to think about boxing, about being retired, because before you know it, I've been retired 3 years, not really had time to think about it because I'm so heavily involved in the boxing scene still. Brilliant. And also, I've got my pro and second license as well, which means I can train fighters and take them down the pro route, work their corners. So
I was going to ask you that. Did you ever think of being in the management game?
Not so much management as of yet. That's maybe down the line. But I'm still a young chicken, really. So I think for me, my big strong points are the trainers and second license stuff. I'm not trying to say I don't want to be a man. I could be a man for all day long. I don't know how the game works. That's not something that I want to go down the route just as of yet. But as I started, I've got my second trainer's license. I can train fighters, take them into corner, work the corners. But yeah, as well. And then obviously my job at Boxing Futures, which is fantastic, helping so many young people. We've now got our own gym over in Yaxley in Peterborough, which is a functioning gym. AEP type gym as well. We've got classrooms all upstairs. We can bring children into our gym. We do some belonging and well-being with them. Also, we'll do the training downstairs. And so we do the personal development stuff upstairs. Downstairs, we do some training. So all under one roof. So I'm in a fantastic position.
So tell me a little bit more about how the Boxing Futures aids and helps the people you're getting in. Are the people sort of folk who are going down the wrong route? Are they?
That's right.
That's who they are. So kids going down the wrong route, and you're able to steady them and bring them back. Is that what it is?
Bring them back and just show what boxing's done for me. Got a lot of young people who come from difficult backgrounds. Got a lot of people that suffer from depression, suffer from the loneliness. Some of them who haven't got no direction, don't know really want to go. So it's about showing them what boxing's done for me, and trying to build up confidence, try and bring them out their shell, and try and get them on a straight and narrow back into education, back into employment, which is a lot of stuff like that is really, really my focal point now. I want to help the next generation and the next people coming through, which we're making a tremendous amounts of difference in the communities for sure.
So how do you think you're achieving that? Why is that positive? Why are they listening to you? I mean, do they come to you and say, listen, coach, somebody came to me and asked me to do this, but I thought, no, I'm not going to do it because I'm into Boxing Futures. Does that ever happen? What do you get?
I think because obviously I can always relate to where they've been, where they're from, what they're going through, because I've been in their shoes. So I can sort of show them, what boxing's done for me. That doesn't mean that I want everyone to come through. I want to pick up a box. I'm not saying that. What boxing's taught me, the discipline and respect, the focus. You need that in day-to-day life. Learning people skills, the life skills you need in day-to-day life, in all walks of life. So, and that's what I like to implement to my young people about, what boxing. So when I was at school, I never used to listen to my teachers, never used to pay no attention, wasn't focused enough, didn't do what I needed to do. But boxing taught me that. When I used to run 5 miles, I used to run 5 miles. I used to train for an hour, and I was spar and give it 110%. And boxing done that for me, It's crazy may sound, it's done that for me. And I want to sort of show the young people, not just young people, even older people, that what fitness can do. I use boxing as a tool, but maybe it could be something a bit different. I always feel that training and exercise is good for your mind.
Yeah. So there's 2 questions I want to ask you. One, the women's boxing game.
Yes.
Indeed, the women's MMA. What do you think about it?
It's definitely getting bit popular now for sure. I see a lot more fights now, a lot more women boxing out there fighting. And I think it's good. I really do. It's just channeled in the right way, it's done the right way. It's better to have it supervised in the right way of going about it than in the wrong way of going about it. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic seeing what they're doing, and it's great. It's great. It's not always just a male sport. It can be a female sport as well.
And do you have any people that train with you who are women?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we have women, boys. Yeah, all train down our gym. But like I say, it's not. I don't look at thinking, oh yeah, you could turn professional. For me, it's about them making a change in their lives, and for me, it's more important than anything else. That they're able to come in. Now I'm able to see a difference in them week in, week out. They leave in the gym smiling, come out of the show, gaining confidence. And for me, I'm winning. I'm winning all day long.
Yeah. So give me an idea about what a session, and by the way, you won't know this, but you've gone over an hour. So unfortunately, this show lasts for about 45 minutes to an hour and a bit. But we tend to go over because, like you, most people are very, very interesting. So it just tends to just go that bit further than what it should do. Cool. And the reason why I have it short is so people can put their headphones in on the train or bus or whatever, going to work, and they can listen to the program. So wherever they are in the world. So I kind of keep it short, which is a bit of a negative for the show in a sense, but it's a good positive because it then allows people to listen to it in that time. So unfortunately, we'd have to put ourselves through soon and have to end. But what I did want to ask is, did you or do you think that if you saw somebody that you felt had it,
Mm.
would you say to that person, yes, come on, into boxing, I'll manage you, I'll sort you out? Or would you not?
I would tell him you're great skill, you're natural at what you do. If you wanted to go down that route, I'm more than willing to help you. I'm more than willing to guide you. I'm more than willing to help you go down that route. But I would never force anybody into doing it. No, not at all. Even though I thought,
I'll tell you why I
Yes.
asked you that,
yes,
Cello, for the one simple reason. You know it can be a raw deal.
yes.
And so what I was wondering is, do you want to put somebody on a path of something that can be, not necessarily is, but can be a raw deal? That's why I
Yes.
asked you that question.
Yeah. But if ever wanted me or wanted my guidance, by all means, I'm more than willing to do this. But I'll never force anybody into it.
Got you.
Unfortunately, they'll have to find out their own way. Like
Right,
I did.
okay. So you would
like I
advise
did.
somebody, if they had it, you would still, nevertheless, all the bits that are in boxing, all the bits
Yes.
that are a little bit dodgy, all the bits
Yes.
that you'd still say, if you've got it and you like it, go for it.
100%.
Right. Okay. So let me ask you last, very finishing question, because I've got to ask this one. The Gypsy King, how do you rate him?
Very much so. Very, very much so. I think he's, in my generation, he's probably one of the best heavyweights in my generation for sure. He's fantastic, absolutely fantastic for what he's done. When he was overweight, depressed, unfit, going down the wrong road, to how he changed his life around to where he is today, world champion again. It's unbelievable. It shows to people out there, no matter how bad you're feeling, you got to find it from somewhere. Get up and get positive and get moving and find a way to come out of that shell. And he's done that. He really has done that. And it's absolutely unbelievable. When I think of I'm having a bad day, and other people have a bad day, I look at Tyson Fury, think where he's been through, look where he is today. And I think it's fantastic. But definitely up there, one of the best fighters in the world for sure.
Well, Tyson, if you're listening, I'd love to have you on the show. And also Marcello Renda, the man who, in my mind anyway, is the only guy, obviously with the other chap, who I've ever heard of has had a double knockout. Is that true? Because I've never heard it.
No.
So that alone gives you boxing history. Yeah.
Yes, that's very much so.
Boxing history. So no matter whatever else happens, as far as I'm concerned, nothing could take that away. Yeah?
That's right.
That's right. Listen, I've got to thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you have had the greatest opportunity to listen to a guy who's actually been through the fighting ringer, who unfortunately, due to some shenanigans, didn't get the opportunity that probably his talent deserved for him to have. He's provided you with advice if you ever want to get into this boxing game and the game of sport in general. And I guess one of the things I get from that is tenacity is what you're saying, really want to do it, but also think a little bit ahead is what you're saying about how maybe you might want to learn the basics first to work through. Is that right? Did I say learn the basics first?
Dead right. Yeah.
So, ladies and gents,
for sure.
Thank you very much. I'll leave Cello to say thanks to you.
Thank you very much, guys, for listening. Much appreciated. Thank you very much, Carl, for having me on the show, pal.
Not a problem, mate. And if you want to advertise anything like just say it again about your program you're doing, because I think it's incredible. Just let people hear about your program. Yeah,
so we're Boxing Futures, Boxing Futures UK. You can find us on all social media. Find us on the old Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And also on the internet, we're boxingfutures.uk. And we do some fantastic work, guys. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much and see you again next week.
Thank you.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening And don't forget to subscribe for free.
Here is a working class spy telling his stories, the secrets, the lives of spies. Feel free to message Carlton King on all socials and give this show 5 stars on Apple iTunes and subscribe so you never miss a single episode. For your ears only.
I was a member of Her Majesty's Secret Intelligence Service.